we are back. And I said we. It's not just me. And I said we because I mentioned that there's going to be some new stuff coming. So if you didn't catch the last two episodes, a couple episodes, I was flying solo, but the guests definitely carried the show. We had Bobby Napoltonia and then Avanish Sahai, who were just incredible. A cut above in terms of partnership leaders that I know and that I've talked to, and those were just incredible episodes. So go check them out if you haven't. But I said we because we are bringing, we're almost there in the transition to kind of like the next phase of the show. So this episode and kind of the subsequent ones, I'm joined by my new co-host and colleague of the past 3.5 years, Michele Albanese.
Let's go. Up? What's going on? What's up, PartnerUp?
Yes. So Michele is here, and we had like the perfect topic because Michelle's the programs manager for partnerships at Drift, and she was actually the first person in partnerships at Drift. So we worked together a long time, and Michele, your purview is kind of like changed and moved around into some various parts of partnership. But I feel like, this transition that we've been on would be a great topic for people to align to around, why do you need a programs manager, kind of this scale, and why we came to that conclusion, and some of the conversations you started to have with, the wider community is, I think, a topic that a lot of people would be interested in. Is this introductory and very fitting episode before we bring on, the next guest, which is a big one. Like we got you, huge announcement, and then the next guest, we got Dave from Impact, right?
Yep. Next week we got him.
Yeah, CEO of Impact.com. I think it's the biggest partner software company around. They're, I think, eyeing an IPO soon. Dave's about to release a book on partnerships. The book we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, you've been talking about this. I'm excited to hear from him, so this should be good.
Absolutely. So today's kind of topic is aligning around this program manager's position. And I'd love to get your take, Michele, on why we felt we needed to make the budgetary push for it, and why you were excited to hop into this role versus just touching channel versus looking at the wider remit of ISV, alliance, kind of like the entire partner ecosystem against the different parts of our business.
Yeah, I think this role is very unique. It took me a while to understand why it's so important. So my experience in partnerships has mainly been on the channel side of things. So Drift has kind of 3 tiers or 3 different facets of partnerships. We have our alliances, we have our ISV tech partnerships, and then we have our channel. And I've always been on the channel side of things, working specifically with our solutions partners post-sale. My background's in customer success, so that's always where I've spent my time. But as the program has grown and Drift has grown, we found this need to actually have somebody doing the cross collaboration between departments. What happens a lot in partnerships is you can feel really siloed and not so integrated and involved. No way. Weird. It grows on its own and then eventually needs to integrate with the rest of the business. So as we've been keeping up with Drift's hypergrowth, we've had to change our program. Jared, we've seen every sort of phase of what this thing has gone through and is still going through. So being aligned cross-departmentally is super important, and why we decided that this role is going to be the next thing that the team needs. So I'm excited to dive in, and specifically I'm excited. Jared mentioned this. I don't know if this is a secret, but this is the fun side of partnerships in his opinion. This is where the good stuff happens with tech and ISV partners and alliances. So I'm excited to learn and get exposed to, a whole other side of partner ecosystems and to learn from the people on PartnerUp. So I'm excited.
Yeah. And I think that's been one of my biggest lessons in kind of like starting the show and hosting it over 35 plus episodes now is I think we're all students of I don't want to say a department or even a motion that was really predominant in the technology space in the early days, kind of emanating out of telecom and like these big PBX systems, like, hardware, like, to do anything technology related. Their channel was everything, right? Partnerships was everything. And then the explosion of SaaS over the past, 10, 15 years, like we've grown up in a world from a, B2B kind of SaaS perspective where partnerships was not a part of it.
Yep.
And now we're seeing a resurgence, so to speak, of it becoming critical to where the big winners, right? The outsized market category defining folks, they don't just have direct relationships. They really have a pulse on the market in a wider ecosystem. And as you grow, what you what you start to realize is, I think, Michelle, we were using this a lot in our narratives to like align the business, because I feel like that's the first step. The first step is making sure the business understands that, what is this programs manager? What are they supposed to be doing? Like, this is a transition from a partner team to a partner program.
Yep.
And programs are what? I mean, they're projects, they're operations, they're things that need to continually run, engines, if you will. We know Elias isn't listening to this, but if he were to, he'd like that phrase, is that you realize really quickly, and I think I've said this to you multiple times, that I kind of want to treat our partner programs like a product manager.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That's treating everyone as a stakeholder and being able to prioritize what do we need to ship in terms of motion, cadence, rituals, projects for our partners.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how you think about that from, coming into a function like this.
I think positioning it as a product manager is probably the best way to put it, right? You think about all the different cadences and systems they have in place to make product, right? It should be thought about in a similar way, because there's so many moving pieces and you can ship things. Jared, you and I have spent the last 3 years just shipping constantly. But what we failed to do is continue to keep those engines running in specific areas, and like, how do we evolve them over time as the business is changing over time? So I think it's super important to have those systems in place so that the engines don't break and we don't get sort of fall into the wayside of what's actually going on in partnerships. The way I like to describe it is that, we're going from like you said, a partner team, but also we're going from a non-partner ecosystem business to a partner ecosystem business, and getting the whole business aligned to that versus just one team getting aligned to it. So I think it's a crucial role. It'll be important, and we could fail without it if you don't have a good programs manager in place.
And looking back, I feel like you need to understand where you're at. There's this concept I've been toying with in terms of like an ecosystem or partnership maturity model that there's a handful of folks out there like Jay McBain or Avanish that have wanted to riff on this concept that you can really start to evaluate, where are you at in your maturity curve?
Yep.
Where this component of consistent engines, cross-departmental like accountability and collaboration, are baked in, is that if you have that ecosystem, maturity model to kind of follow, just zoom out, think of it that way. But you also need to think of it in terms of like ecosystem, like company fit. So we have like product market fit, like market product fit. Some companies really shouldn't be making investments in partnerships at an early stage. Jay McBain made that point on one of our most popular episodes. He said, like, look, this is a horrible analogy, but McDonald's perfected the kitchen, where the fry machine was, where the Coke machine, where burgers were made. Like, they get it all set up, and then they go to franchise, right? Then they're branching out into giving that model to other people. And I've heard stories of companies as early as 12 employees going all in, or I mean even earlier than that, Michelle. Like one of our mentors and role models, Pete Caputa.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Databox was 100% channel driven from the first 4 or 5 employees.
Yep.
And I think all of the operations and projects and programs there were what? I mean, they were partnerships focused, integrations, agencies, everything from the beginning. So you have to think like, do we have that fit and do we have that buy-in at the executive level? And if you're right there, this role becomes essential immediately, because without it, you hit escape velocity. Like, I mean, just think about our sales and customer success teams.
Yep.
Like if you hadn't moved into this position and we have a new chief customer officer, a new VP of customer success, new VP of services, how the heck would our channel account managers and ISV people interface with a multi-100 person customer success organization?
Yeah. I mean, the business moves so fast. The only way you're going to be able to keep up with it is if you have somebody at the top actually seeing everything at a zoomed out view, because you can get so lost in the day-to-day actions of the work you're doing. So yeah, it's vital in my opinion, especially when you're working at a company moving so quickly.
No doubt. I mean, we got a lightning bolt in our name. We're definitely not going to turn this into like a drift focused podcast. It's just more us riffing. I think this, beginner's mindset and having a culture of curiosity is something that's so important that I think this role forces upon other departments. Like, it's been amazing to me over the past year. I mean, really, like a year ago, there wasn't much by way of, I felt like, partner community. There's been some great companies that have started and really started to come into their own, like Crossbeam, that, they kind of, sponsored the first 10 episodes. We've had Bob Moore, the CEO, on the podcast. They're producing some great content. If you're not following the Crossbeam blog and what Sean Bland is doing and the team over there, it's great. I mean, it's phenomenal content. There's the Cloud Software Association. Boom, I get that in every time. I forget to do it at the beginning, and then I get the shout out in. So we got the Cloud Software Association. So here's my shameless plug too. So if you're not a member, go check it out. Cloud Software Association, 4,000 plus partnerships professionals. A great Slack group. And Thursday, so the 21st, I believe. Let me double check the calendar. The 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, I am giving a master class, which I'm super excited about. So for members of the Cloud Software Association, that is titled, let me get the title right, How to Secure Alliances with Market Leaders at a Startup. Yep. And kind of giving some of the secret sauce behind how I've landed partnerships with no relationship with, like, PandaDoc to HubSpot, and that leading to our Series B investment. Microsoft, how we did it with Marketo and drifted Adobe. So there's my Cloud Software Association plug. But the point being is that no matter how curious we get as a community, we have to recognize that, our counterparts leading customer success and sales and product, they don't have that same curiosity. And it's not because they don't care, they just don't know.
Yep.
And I feel like a program management function allows us, in kind of going back to, like, what are the key cornerstones of program management? And we're kind of building out, the program management playbook, if you will, is like the first step, Michele, that maybe we could talk about is the cadences and rituals, right?
Yeah.
Like, there has to be some consistency in a forcing function, because it just can't be projects in a spreadsheet or a project management system. It has to be something a little bit deeper. Let's talk a little bit about that. How you think about approaching rituals and cadences?
Yeah, I'd say we had really good rituals and cadences within our own team, right? To start off, we had, how we were sharing what we were working on. We had weekly meetings, we had email updates, things like that. But once again, siloed to the partner team, right? So how do we take that and bring that at scale and work our way into the other departments? So for example, our marketing team is something that we're getting a lot closer to. We'll start a new cadence with them. We'll start a new intake. How do we actually get on the radar for that marketing team, given their changes and their size at this point? So,
well, let's pause there and, like, even go one layer deeper. So, sure. For example, like, one thing that you don't realize, maybe being in partnerships, is that if you're not completely aligned, like, you might be tangentially aligned.
Yep.
And we were, like, how much partner marketing happened organically? And I would say quite a bit.
Right.
But you don't realize that marketing campaign planning happens a month before the quarter starts.
Right.
And we were on a different schedule for our plans, and they weren't necessarily aligned to be strategic.
Right.
So now that cadence is, okay, there is a partner marketing, 1 month before the quarter starts, meeting where they're sharing their campaign initiatives for the quarter, and every single major pillar initiative has to have a partner initiative.
Yeah, I would say that was a big learning, right? I think we were waiting and we were saying, hey, we have partners at the ready to talk about topics A, B, and C. And we would bring them to marketing and they would say, that's not our focus. Now we're kind of flipping it on its head and saying, hey, marketing, what are your campaigns? What are the topics you're going to be focused on within the quarter? And then how do we, as a partner team, go out and find the right partner fits for each of those specific topics? And that's going to be more welcome by your marketing team, because they're thinking, well, okay, it integrates exactly into the offers that we're going to have for this specific topic. Why wouldn't I use a partner to help out there? Have a different voice, not it all coming from the company itself. So I'm excited for the way that we've kind of flipped it on its head, are getting plugged into that specific motion. And that becomes a new ritual and a new cadence, right? Now that they know that this new role exists and they can coordinate through me, quarterly planning, partner will now be a new line item that we can rely on and make sure that we're getting integrated into the larger marketing effort. So that's a great example. And Jared, what I would say too is, we're talking about program management. You're talking about those core pillars. I think it's interesting how you and I even came to the concept of this role. And if other people are thinking about, hey, this might be something that we're ready for, I'm not quite sure yet. As far as, I would love to hear your opinion, like why you felt now was the right time for this role. And then what were some of the other like key things you wanted to make sure were in that job description of, hey, this is what this role should entail, and this is the type of person that should fit this role?
Going back to the concept of, I'm going to have to work on this content with someone, like an ecosystem or partnerships maturity model. And like,
hey, we've built a maturity model before. You can do it again.
Right. The way that I thought about it was, whenever we had the core pillars of different motions spun up and like stood up as part of like a long-term plan, like when you're early stage and you have a plan and you're trying to follow that plan, 90% of it's garbage, right? Like a plan in an early stage hyper growth SaaS company, or even a division of like a bigger company that's kind of treated as its own independent business unit, the results need to be weekly. Like you're changing things so quick that doing like a 2-year plan not only does it not have value, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Absolutely.
We got to a point where we started to eye, into the different phase of revenue and growth, where we needed to look longer term, and we needed to make sure that, okay, each department within partnerships, so channel, so agency, solutions, partners, SIs, alliances, which are, the sumos, the industry leaders, and then more like tech platforms, so ISVs, we had these functions kind of spun up, and now we're like a 14-person, BD team. And we have these 3 buckets, and when it's time is whenever each kind of like function within partnerships, each of those 3 buckets have a formative leader, and they need to be able to operate across all 4 departments. So, marketing, product, sales, and customer success. Yeah. You need that interface between all 4. And this is why it's so critical, is that 9 times out of 10, I've talked to as many partnerships leaders as anyone in B2B SaaS, I think, because I geek out on this way too much, is your ICs, your individual contributors, they have a quota that's directly related to revenue. And that's not to say that's not the goal. Of course, that's the goal. Why else? Like, we get paid money, right? Like, it's because we make money. Yep. But product, like, how is a individual contributor going to interface with product and think more strategically? Like, I'm thinking that way. I mean, you've seen me jump in with like our chief product officers and chief technology officers, and even ship innovative things like on the main stage of Adobe Summit, conversational ABM. That was a partner generated idea that generated tons of enterprise value. Which individual contributor would have drove that? None of them. Nope. Like you can't do it. And then we think about, sales, there's typically alignment there, but there's a lot of like post-sale distrust. This partner doesn't know what they're doing, right? And like a forcing function. And then there's a lot of, marketing. Hey, we just had this great win, but how are we translating that into promotional materials? Or my favorite phrase in the past 6 months is FOMO, right?
How do you create FOMO? Yep.
How do you make your other partners jealous and make your partners famous, which makes other partners want to lean in? So I think at the point at which you realize that you need to have to be a part of every other business is when that starts to come together. So we built this ecosystem plan in end of Q1. Yep. And we said, hey, here's what the next year and a half kind of 2 years looks like. And there was a bunch of roles in there, and one of the foundational roles was this one. And that's it's kind of like I think that's the first time that I've really zoomed out that far and like executed quarter over quarter at putting this into place. And if we hadn't had that, I think we already feel like we're behind all the time. Every partnerships person does. We would have been way off. So I think at the point at which you realize you have multiple partner functions, your individual contributors can no longer impact the business just through revenue sourcing or influencing. And you need to start to think across the entire, business. And it's actually funny, Michelle. I was talking to a guest that we're going to have on, Katrina from LiveRamp today in like a pre-interview. We've kind of just developed a relationship. I was trying to recruit her over to Drift a while back, and she said no. So like, this is public. So she's like, no, I'm sticking with LiveRamp. I got a great thing going on. But one of the things that she was talking about, and I think a topic that we'll get into, is corporate strategy. And like, to me, so people I know that own a program management position, like Lindsay over at Adobe, it's not just program management, it's program management and strategy.
Right.
And why? Because this is where I'm like the most interested in, why I believe that ecosystem and partnerships, the time is now, is that we're coming up to a point where there's 10,000 SaaS applications.
Yep.
Where everyone's over inundated by choice, and that a lot of business decisions cannot be made simply from the perspective of how do I reach my customer, but what is happening in the market. And you don't do that by simply looking at it through the lens of just how do I source pipeline. Like your go-to-market, like I've said on this show before, great product never beats great go-to-market. Great go-to-market never beats great ecosystem.
Yep.
And then I would even say that great ecosystem is subservient to, let's say, a market strategy. Like if the market has shifted in an entirely different direction, then your ecosystem strategy might have to change as well.
Yep.
And most people aren't there yet. I mean, there's few companies that really have this type of function and role. And I think aligning to your C-suite, the thing that I'm most excited about, Michele, is like we've had opinions about market strategy before, but now that we have the foundation for program management, we can start to make more strategic bets because we're interfacing with every part of the department, every department individually.
Right.
So like there's this inflection point where the company actually needs market strategy, and your ecosystem team is the best place to gather that information, because they're thinking about the relationships in market, where the market is, not just the direct relationship to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about where your partners are playing, where your solutions partners are finding value with their customers. How do you follow all those learnings to make your strategic bets as a company? Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's great.
It's exciting. It's the stuff that
it's exciting. That partnerships is all about just making things that don't exist and just trying it out and learning from each other. To your point earlier, Jared, like when I was going to be in my first partner role, there was no resources out there. I remember I asked my CEO, David Cancel, hey, where should I learn? Like, is there any books? Guys, a curious learning machine. He's like, I'm not sure. Here's a couple blog posts from HubSpot that's been doing it. I can introduce you to Pete Caputo. But to your point, the learning opportunity is better than ever. I think everybody's so willing to share because everybody's trying to figure it out, right? And we're all kind of figuring it out together within our own respective organizations. So the partner program role, like you said, is a newer role, but I think there's an absolute massive learning opportunity for how we actually make that role work and make it better for everybody. So I'm excited.
And I think aligned to the future of your business, I think a lot of companies don't see the roadmap of where partnerships moves from, let's say, a lever, or it starts as a bet.
Yeah, it's a tool that, hey, let's just see if this thing even works. Let's just like put it out there and see if people buy or want to work through partners. And you're just kind of like, okay, it's an experiment, if you will.
Right. It's an experiment. It's a bet.
Yeah.
And then perhaps it becomes a lever. And then at some point, whether or not you want to admit it, it has to become a strategic imperative.
Yep.
Right. Where you're not going to win beyond your, another book that I nonstop reference. So if you haven't caught the reference yet, go buy the damn book. Is Crossing the Chasm. So Sunir Shah, shout out from the CSA for forcing that book on me. One that I think I glossed over a long time ago is, going from your early adopters to the entrenched masses. Is you need to have a perspective on the market that you don't already have relationships with, right? And your ecosystem and like those players that might span across multiple verticals, like a systems integrator that works with, the vertical that you work with, but they also have a new vertical for you, but it's kind of like their bread and butter. Like that strategic imperative forces the conversation to go, okay, now we need to think about a vertical strategy. That vertical strategy is going to emanate from your partner strategy, or at least it should.
It should, right? Why would you just go to market with no understanding of what that vertical is looking for, needs, what's worked for them in the past? Why wouldn't you go through a partner that's tapped that market, or excuse me, vertical, and understands that customer, right? Why would you take the long way? Go straight to the roots.
Right. It shows the amount of ego that we've built up. And I say this being guilty, having led go-to-market teams, is that we think we can go directly to any customer with our cold emails and our ads, and that we're going to go win in that market when there's relationships that already exist. I mean, cold email, SDR, cold call versus, trusted advisor, who's going to win in terms of like vendor selection. It's not even a debate.
Right.
But it's our job, and that's why kind of circling back to like why this role is so important, right? And how you might be able to bring your executive team, escalate this to kind of like the board level in a more strategic part of the business, is we have to educate the C-suite. We have to bring that to bear that, look, this bet, like whether we're in the experiment to lever stage or lever to strategic imperative, here's where it ends up. And it's the long game, and the long game and compound interest is what generates, outsized returns. So if we can get ahead of that and not just fumble into our next vertical, right? Try to, throw a line, a rope across the chasm from our early adopters to the next one and actually build a dang bridge. We can go win that next market faster. And that's why this program management, having product aligned, marketing, sales, customer success is so vital to any ecosystem business that's, worth their weight in salt in 2021. So with that, we're gonna do a quick episode on this one. We had to bring Michele into the fold, introduce the PartnerUp community to her. So tag her up on LinkedIn whenever you see this. Share your favorite episode. And Michele, should we tease the next couple we got? So we mentioned Dave with Impact.
Yep.
Then we got another one that I'm really excited about. Which I'm going to drop here, which is we had Jay McBain on. We're going to have on the better half, Michele McBain. So can you imagine that household?
Yeah. It must be nonstop talk about partner ecosystems and the trends and what you're seeing out there. Think about that dinner table.
I know. It's so Michele is the Michele McBain is the global head of a community and ecosystem at Cisco. So that's going to be an amazing conversation. So we're bringing like the heat to PartnerUp. We're going to be releasing some updates to kind of the brand that makes it a little bit more fun, and also some more, I would say interesting, like long tail kind of content. So the format I'm still working on, but be on the lookout for more content from PartnerUp. The podcast format, just bigger and better, more guests. And also some things like some partner news, some newsletters, some media stuff that we've been toying around with. So always improving, open to feedback. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave that review. If you want to check us out on YouTube, that's actually growing pretty decent. It's not too bad. Check us out on YouTube. You can see the new studio. Michele and I might, because we're both in the Tampa Bay area, we might try to do a couple in person.
We absolutely should do that. Absolutely.
Definitely. We screwed up in not doing it in Boston whenever we were there last time. But you can come check us out on YouTube, just PartnerUp. And, every episode is available at partneruppodcast.com. So we will see you all next time, PartnerUp. Michele.
Thank you.
To the show.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Woo!